Hey, so I have been tweaking my Pro Tools stereo film template, and I wanted to share where I was at. Quick disclaimer, things will probably change as I work more, and they will probably change per project. But this way, I'm starting with all the bells and whistles, and I can whittle down as needed. Okay, so carrying on. If you go to session settings, typical specs, right? 24-bit, 48 kilohertz, interleave, broadcast wave. I have my session start at 5830. The idea being that there will be a leader at 5830, and then at 5958 there will be a two pop, and then picture starts at 1 hour, and that is how we ensure sync. And this session by default is at a frame rate of 23.976. When I import an AF or video, I will adjust it to whatever the frame rate for the project is. But a lot of the stuff I do will be at this frame rate. Cool. Ruler, I keep it as simple as possible. Minutes, seconds, time code, markers. I don't want to see tempo, meter. I'm not working with any of that in a film, right? I have my nudge values set to 1 frame, grid 1 frame, for precision. Starting out, I'll edit a lot in grid mode. As I get to more like creative sound effect editing, I tend to then go into slip mode. Maybe I'll do more videos on that kind of technique later. Anyway, yes, and as you will see, I just have one counter with time code being displayed. Okay, now talking about the food groups of it all, right? So dialogue, Foley, sound effects, backgrounds, music. Then I have my VCAs for each group, and then I have buses, which I'll get more into later. My big rule with a starting out track count is working in groups of 8. Because the thinking is if I were to ever go to a studio, everything would display in sections of 8, and those fader banks are usually in sections of 8. So you have 8 faders at a time. So if we open up all of the folders, and this is still something I'm trying to figure out, whether I change these basic folders to routing folders and completely nix the idea of having buses. Honestly, I'm leaning towards making that change, but I also like the idea of having all of my buses together neatly in a row. It's still something I'm figuring out. Cool. So because I usually work on really short films, at the moment I just have 8 dialogue tracks, 2 ADR tracks just in case. And then I have 3 reverbs for each food group, my dialogue, my Foley, etc. Right now I have it. If I actually commented, I did. Right now I have an interior verb, an exterior verb, special effects verb. And of course, this might change per project as well. This is what I start with. So I have every track has a send to each of those 3. And they're all down at the moment. Bring each track in as necessary. Then you see my Foley, also just 8 tracks there. We have SFX where I get a little crazy. Again, this is something that I may tweak down the road. I have SFX A, B, C, and D for different types of effects. So SFX A is hard effects. B I've been using for really big effects. And then C, it's not for vehicles, C for cars. I'm doing a horror short right now where the C means creature, so all of my monster effects are on that track. D, I don't know, whatever else is left over. And again, I might completely nix some of these or break the rules and do whatever I want for organizational purposes. Moving forward, and as I discover how I like to work with this template a bit more. But this is my thinking and where I'm starting. It also depends on if I have the privilege of working with a separate mixer, then I will change my template to how they will want to receive my work. Within each sound effects folder, I have 8 mono tracks and 8 stereo tracks. again with those sends. Oh, and every input track is sending to its respective bus, right? So we've got the Foley here, dialogue. That's sending to the dialogue bus, etc. The cool thing in my SFX folder is I have these instrument tracks. So if I want to do something really designed, like with a virtual instrument, I can make that, and then whatever clip I make, I will drag up to an input track, and that will convert it to an audio file, which uses less processing power. Yeah. Then I have my backgrounds, 8 mono tracks of those, and 8 stereo tracks. Backgrounds I checkerboard per each cut or scene. Music, I have at the moment 2 diegetic tracks. So diegetic means in scene. So if a music is coming from a boombox, that's diegetic. So these I would checkerboard and put some effects on it depending on what the source was. Then I have 8 just regular stereo music tracks. And then I have 16 stereo tracks for music stems. So when a composer sends me stems, I can pop those in. And then I have my VCAs, dialogue, Foley, sound effects, backgrounds, music, and then the reverbs all have their own. I need to relabel that one. And then everything. And then we have the masters. So I have processing on the dialogue bus, to start a de-esser, Pro EQ, Pro Q, compressor, and then everything has a limiter to start. I have these like presets, but honestly, it's I find myself adjusting so much every time I hear the material I get. So these are all to start. If I'm being honest, when I get work, I will bypass these plugins and hear things as is, and then make the decision whether these presets do more harm than good and adjust from there. And then I have a master that's meant to, listen to things at broadcast level. So, your minus 23 type of deal. If this is theatrical, it's lower than that. But then I have a webmaster. So if something needs to be boosted for YouTube, I have that with a trim plugin here. Yes. And then, on these tracks, I also have my loudness meters. The thinking with having 2 different masters is I don't need to remix something if it gets posted on YouTube. Cool. And then the thing to mention that's pretty cool are how I have things grouped. So obviously there are the VCAs. If you know Pro Tools, VCAs are made in the groups window. Those are always active. Same with my... Who is this not... The all isn't active. All right, I have to save this template later. Anyway, so the cool thing I have here is that the reverbs are all grouped. So whatever I do on one track, as long as the groups are active, will happen across all of the tracks. Say I make an adjustment to, just do some random stuff, to the first, to reverb A. So I'm going to leave this open so we can compare. If I go up to my next reverb for my sound effects, this should match. Yeah. So anything I do will appear in all of the reverb sends. So, yep. So that way I can make all the changes. Everything can sound like it's in the same room or has similar effects for the moment. I also have my edit groups, of course, music, BGs, SFX, Foley, dialogue, music stems. Want to edit my stems together to maintain that sync that the composer intends. And that's just so I can edit faster. Like if I'm editing backgrounds, I can cut the heads and tails all together of different files really quickly, add fades, move SFX in sync very quickly. Groups are the secret weapon. All dialogue tracks sent to the dialogue bus. All Foley tracks sent to the Foley bus. All sound effects send to the effects bus. All ambiences and backgrounds send to the ambience bus. All music sends to the music bus. Please tell me you see this pattern. Everything also sends to an M&E bus. If a client needs all the music and effects but not the dialogue, I'm able to send that. All the buses are sending to the stereo master and then the stereo web master as well. So that's all for now. I may make tweaks. Tell me what you think in the comments.